Hi friends, so I got this wood plaque an easel at a thrift store for 50 cents and it's in really good condition. I was super happy with it. It had a nice quote on it, but it was blurry, and so I just thought I could make this cute, and it so happens I have the stencil that with the same quote as that I'm painting over now. But anyway, I'm painting it first with chalk paint by Waverly in the color Ivory. Just giving it a good layer across the whole thing. Just getting all the top covered. Now I'll use my little drying tool, my heat tool, give it a good dry. And after I get it dry, I'm going to give it a quick little sanding just to smooth it out and plus scruff up the edges a little bit. And I have these tree prints. They'll be in my Etsy shop, and so the link to it will be below this video. But I lowered the opacity so it was really faded, so because I want this tree just in the background of what I'm going to do to this sign. So it's printed on a full page of just regular printer paper. And on this stencil I'm using, it says I can't remember exactly what it says, but we'll have to read it at the end. But I didn't want the branches or the word hour on it, so I taped those over so I didn't accidentally get some paint in there. But right now I'm just kind of lining things up and seeing where I want them. So now I'm taking this water pen that I got at the Dollar Tree, and just going around the edges, getting it wet so then it'll tear really easy. Just tears wherever you got it wet, and I didn't want straight lines. I like the uneven edges, so this worked perfect. So I wanted it more close to the bottom, so now I'm just going to put a layer of Mod Podge all over where that paper will lay. Make sure it's spread all over. Now I'll lay this paper, and I'm moving it closer to the bottom because I'm going to put greenery and a bow at the top. So I'm just kind of pressing it down, and I'm going to need to put some more on the edges and make sure all those edges are sealed down. So put some underneath and on top. And I make sure all the edges are down, so most all the edges have Mod Podge on the top. But I ended up not putting more Mod Podge on the whole layer of the tree, just along the edges. But I had to make sure all the edges were sealed and laying down flat. Now I'll just use my heat tool again and make sure that's all dry, and I'll press down with my fingers in a few spots and make sure those bumps and bubbles are out. Just giving it a good dry, making sure it's all dry before my next step. Just filling it all over and making sure it's dry. So I'm going to put a stencil on, and I run into a little bit of trouble because where the Mod Podge is on the bottom layer there, and I'm using burnt umber. Anyway, the stencil kind of smeared at the bottom, but we'll talk about that when we get to that point. So I'm just going to tape in it in a couple places and make sure it doesn't move on my board. And I'm using burnt umber apple barrel paint and getting a little bit on my dauber and then really daubing it onto the paper towel, and just doing circular motions, going all over and making sure every little spot gets inked in there. So I'll get a little bit on my foam dauber or brush and then just kind of get all the excess off on my paper towel. You want very little on your brush. Just keep going round and round until you can see that each little spot in each letter is filled in. Now on this last row, you'll see when I pull it up that it really smeared or bled a little bit because of the Mod Podge that it was on. And so when I pull the stencil up, I actually have to wipe off that bottom line of paint, and I'll redo it. So off camera, I will use a baby wipe and wash that bottom line off. You can see where it's heavy there. So I took it off, and I'm just going to realign my stencil and put it exactly where it was before, and just be a little bit more careful about that, doing that bottom line of words. So I really made sure I didn't have very much paint on my foam brush as I went in circles. And it still spread heavy a little bit, but it came off and it looks fine. So I'm just going to use my Kiehl's dark sealing wax, and I'm just going all the way around, and there's a couple blobs that I had to wipe off, but what I really struggled with is I didn't plan ahead when I was doing the Mod Podge, so it went on differently where it was just the wood and where the Mod Podge is and the edge of the paper, as you can see there at the top. But I just kept playing with it and working with it, and it didn't blend perfectly at the top, but it didn't matter too much because that's right where my bow and my greenery is going to go. So you'll see at the end that I get it all camouflaged, and it looks really great when we're done here. And the stencil says, "Family, like branches on a tree, we all grow in different directions, yet our roots remain as one." So I got all the edges browned up and distressed. Now I'm just using some greenery, some boxwood leaves that I got at Walmart, just trimming them the right shape. Let's see, these are the darker ones that I actually got at the Dollar Tree, and I'm using my staple gun. I got this on Amazon. The link will be below. And then I'm using a little bit lighter green leaves, and these are the ones that I actually got at Walmart. So I play with it a little bit, and I realize that it's too big, so I just pull off a little twig of it and put on each side. I wanted some of the lighter green on each side of those. Just work with it until I get the amount that I like and staple it on. Set that aside. Now I'm going to make my bow. So I'm using my little mini Bodabra, and I got that on Amazon. The link for that will be below too. So I decided to start out with some sisal, and it's kind of a moss. I got that on Amazon as well, and the link for that will be below too. And then I'm just using some random black and white and red and white ticking fabric strips. That red and white really twisted. I'm just putting it back and forth, making some loops, some bows. And this is just a strip of fabric that I tore off. And then I decided to put a strip of burlap ribbon, just a couple strands of that in there, just to bulk it up a little bit. Tie it off in the center, and then you take it off your Bodabra and tie it tight in the middle. And then I tied a big bow and left that bow in the center of mine. Now I just kind of fluff it and trim up the sisal and trim the long tails of the bow, and just move it where I need the pieces to go. And I love the look of the sisal. It just really adds to the project, I think. Had to twist one tail around so the front of the fabric would be showing. So just trying to make sure that fits in there. Now I'm just putting a big glob of hot glue. Putting that right in the center there. Doing a little more fluffing and trimming. Now I'm getting a little bit more sisal and just getting a little bunch of it and folding it in half. And then just kind of gluing it underneath there, sticking out on both sides. And then after this, I thought it needed a little bit more greenery down towards the bottom on each side. So you'll see here in a minute, I'll add a little bit more greenery as well after I trim some of that. So I decided I'd put a rusty heart in the middle, and I want it to kind of hang down from the center of that bow. So I'm just kind of putting it through the little loop there, deciding how I want it to hang and where do I want it to hang. So I'll just glue the top of that jute cord in the middle there, and then I end up tying another little twine bow to go on top of that. Just using the end of my paintbrush to push it down there in the center. And here's where I decided it needed a little bit more greenery, so I'm just going to pull off two little twigs, hot glue, and sticking them on, one on each side. And I think it turned out really, really pretty. And I love this project, and I hope it inspires you to use something you might find at a thrift store. But it turned out really beautiful, and it looks good sitting on my table, and I appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe, and please check out my links below. And I hope you like this. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.